Hello, everyone. Oh, I'm so excited for you to listen to this episode. I just finished recording with Erika Rothenberger, and my heart is just so full. I have so many emotions. She is just such an inspiration and has a truly powerful story on really the audacity to thrive and to be resilient. And throughout the episode, she just shares what started that whole experience in her life. And she truly went through a very intense moment and just really diving into it and sharing with us how that has impacted her life and the choices that she's made since that moment. So I am so excited for you to listen to this. If you find yourself looking for inspiration and somebody who is living every day boldly and making choices, I am really excited for you to listen to this, and I hope you all enjoy this episode with Erika Rothenberger.
Hello, hello. Do you want to feel the profound impact of intentional gratitude and being present in your life? Get ready to dive deep into the transformative power of gratitude through inspiring stories and conversations with amazing humans and business leaders on the Motion of Gratitude podcast. Now, here's your host, Shannon Missimer.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Motion of Gratitude podcast. I am so looking forward to this conversation with my guest today. But before I welcome her to the show, I want to give you a brief introduction. So this incredible human is a seasoned corporate professional, speaker, global wellness leader, podcaster, and published author. She is on a mission to guide women toward the life they aspire to live. Her expertise and experience provide actionable steps to embrace your next level, starting with the courage to take the first step. And honestly, her energy, whether behind a screen or in person, is contagious. So Erika Rothenberger, welcome to the show.
To be here to talk about energy. I just love it, and gratitude for being here today. I'm wearing my bracelet and just feeling all the gratitude to be on here today.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And yeah, it is so funny how worlds collide and connect. So we've only met in person, I guess it was 3 weeks ago at this point. I feel like it was like the first time we connected, but there's just those people that you meet and you're like, yes, we are meant to go on this journey of life, whatever that looks like. And, it's my mother-in-law was actually the person that first introduced us, which I think is just incredible. And I'm just so honored to have you here, and I'm so inspired by you, by what you're doing, just the energy that you bring to your life, to the world. And I'm really excited to share this with our listeners today and for them to get a feel of who you are and kind of what your message is for the world. But before we get into that, because I'm really excited for that conversation, I would love if you could share your story. I mean, there's a beautifully inspiring story that has so much depth and intense moments. And I would love to share what brought you on this path to want to speak, to want to impact women, to really want to live life from such a different place, and really have this audacity to do things differently. So, yes, please share with us your story of what brought you on this journey.
Well, I never knew on June 16th of 2022 that a punch would change my life. I go back to that day, and it was such a normal day, Shannon. Like, it was just a day that like any other, right? Like that nothing was going to happen. And I remember saying goodbye to my kids. I remember texting my husband, he was in Kansas City that morning, and my kids were day 3 off of school that year with a brand new babysitter because there was no camps that started that week.
Yes.
And I remember being a little bit of a gloomy morning, and knowing it was a bit overcast and telling them they should go to the movies. I went to a coffee meeting that morning, and I remember the coffee meeting ran a little bit longer. It was with someone that it was a phenomenal conversation. I messaged my admin and asked her if she could push back an appointment 15 minutes to start at 10:15. And I always questioned myself if I hadn't asked that question. If I had pushed to be in the office at 9:55 versus 10:03, how my day may have been different. Because that changed. At 10 o'clock, as I left that coffee appointment, I left my kids a message. And it could have been the last message I ever left them. It was a video message reminding them to have a beautiful day and to have fun at the movies and that I love them. As I pulled into that parking spot, I parked the same place that I always did. I had worked here for over 10 years. I went to shuffle all of my goods together because I am a bag lady and carry a lot of different things, and tried to get everything together. Took that last sip of lemon water that morning, checked my phone, and I went to open my car door just like any of us would. And as I opened the door, there he was, a man I had never seen before. I quickly tried to ask him, "Sir, can I help you?" And before the words "help you" even came out of my mouth, he punched me so hard in the face. He grabbed me by my tendrils of my hair and he threw me to that asphalt pavement. He beat me as hard as he could. I screamed, I cried, I tried to gnarl down. I tried to do everything within my power to get away from this animal. And as I tried to crawl away, he came underneath my neck with his large crease of his elbow. And what was probably less than 2 seconds felt like an eternity, because I remember the thought so distinctly, knowing that may be my last breath on earth. It may be the last moment I could be a mom, the last moment that I would be a wife to Andy. And then everything went black. I passed out after he strangled me. And truly by an act of God, someone way higher than me, I have no idea, I was able to come to consciousness. I remember seeing bright lights. I remember just not knowing where I was. I actually thought I was in my bed. And somehow, again, by the glory of a higher power, I was able to get to my feet and run for help. He was in my car. I was able to get to my office building, not knowing if he was going to chase me, if he had a gun, if he was coming after me. See, what you don't know is this man had assaulted 4 women the night before, and he had sexually assaulted a woman that very morning. He fled by foot and started burying himself in the high grasses and the marshes by our office building. I was able to give a description of him. Fortunately, due to the police department in our local community, they were able to send the drones in and the dogs in and find him. But that story absolutely changed my life. That first punch absolutely changed the trajectory of where I am today. And what happened to him? Well, he's still in a correctional facility without an actual sentence. I still go to trial with him. And that will end, and that will pass. But I will never forget that story. And I will never forget the most pivotal moment of the story was when I was sitting in my gazebo 3 days after it happened, roughly 72 hours. Tears dripping down my face. It was the middle of June. I had a hoodie on, and I just remember in the exact moment I had to make a decision. Was I going to be a victim? Was I merely going to survive, or was I going to choose to thrive for myself, for those 4 eyes of my children that were watching their mother, and for, quite frankly, so many people that I knew I could impact by sharing my story and talking about having that audacity to be resilient. And 2 years later, I will say so much good has come from it. So much light, so much love, so much energy. And what he did to me didn't define me. And it will never define me. It will always just be a part of my story. I have forgiven him in such a weird way. When I say that out loud, it almost sounds like it's, sacrilegious. But where has he been? What was his story? He will serve his time, and I know justice will prevail. And I will be able to use this as a catalyst to be the light for so many others.
Wow. One, thank you for the vulnerability to continue to go back to that space. I can only imagine what comes to the surface, of really allowing yourself to speak to that moment and allow yourself to take that moment, and what you've done with it is so incredibly powerful. I feel a little bit emotional right now listening to this, because hearing you talk about thinking the last time that could be you being a mom or you being a wife, there's so much that comes up in that space of wow, we never know when that moment will come. And for you to then take something that for so many people can be the end of a beautiful life story, right? That can be the beginning of identifying, as you said, as more of, this is what happened to me. And when I meet you and when I hear you speak or just see you in the world, you are such a beautiful light, and you have truly taken this moment in your life and created something that is so beautiful, and something that not even that human can ever take away from you. And I think there's so much beauty and inspiration in that. And just one, thank you for having the courage to share your story over and over again.
And thank you for giving me a platform to share it. And I want to also just really emphasize something to anyone that's listening to this. Just because you haven't been punched, perhaps you haven't been assaulted, or perhaps you have. Perhaps you're the parent right now that has a child who's suffering with autism, or you're dealing with a bitter divorce, or you have a parent that's terminally ill right now. We all have our trauma.
Yes.
We all have something.
Yes.
Mine isn't worse or better than anyone's. It's just part of my story. And everyone listening to this has a story.
Yes.
And has something. And we can choose to let it break us, or we can choose to allow it to light up. Yes. And what I chose to do with this story was to turn the light up, turn my voice up. I almost have so much gratitude that it actually happened, because I truly believe it was a pivotal point in my life where I was saying, go, serve, be, shine that light. So I want to remind anyone that's listening to this right now, whatever your story is, don't negate it, but use it as a gift.
And I think, thank you for saying that, because I can resonate in that my life shifted through my darkest moments, right? It's it is in those moments where you do have to make that choice. And there is that moment where it's what am I going to do with this? And how am I going to write the story? And just to remember that, exactly like you said, if you're in that darkness, allow it to be the beginning of something new, and this new chapter that you choose. And, I think sometimes too, you hear this story and you hear this idea of choosing. And I can imagine that, yes, in that moment you made that choice, and it still required you to show up every day and have the belief that you're worthy of making that choice. What has that, because I think, sometimes that gets lost for people, where it's well, you make a choice and then it becomes easy. So can you speak a little bit to that, of knowing that you had to make a choice to live life differently, and also it not just being a one-time choice that you made, and then life just kind of kept going in that direction?
Yeah. And I love this question. And I really believe that it really comes down to the choice we make every day, whether you perhaps were an alcoholic. Perhaps you suffered with an eating disorder. Perhaps you have, you struggle with just going to the gym every day. You have a choice every day, and it's not a finite point. It's not something like, okay, well, I accomplished it. It's ongoing. It's a journey. Yes. And reminding ourselves that every once in a while we're going to stumble.
Yes.
But it's deciding, what are those things in your life every day? What are those pillars that are non-negotiable? And the reminder that I get every day is when my children, Drew and Adeline, when I look them in the eyes, that I have the choice to be the best example, because they are a legacy. And what type of humans do I want to raise?
Yes.
And if I choose to not be audacious with my goals, if I choose not to show up, what am I teaching them? And perhaps you're listening to this and you don't have kids. It doesn't matter. So many people are watching us.
Yes.
How do we want to leave this world? Because at the end of the day, that punch could have been my last moment. And truly, I wasn't leaving the world the way that I wanted to. And I have this chance now with this rebirth to go and live that legacy that I want to leave.
Yes.
So let's ask ourselves, what legacy do we want to leave at the end of the day?
Yes.
What do we want to leave on this earth? And it's not money, and it's not fame, and it's not success. Maybe that will come alongside of it. Great. But it's really the way that we ultimately leave people.
Yes.
Think about the last funeral you went to, and when someone said their eulogy, they didn't remind you about the money in their bank account or what car they were driving. It was who they were as a human.
Yes.
And that's where I go back to when I'm having, because I have those wall kicking dark days when I'm like, oh my goodness, how am I going to get through this? And I don't want to be that mom. I don't want to be that superstar. I don't want to be that light, because it's easier to be sometimes to be in that bad spot.
Yes.
But I have that choice. And what I've recognized is training myself and starting to notice when I go down to those dark levels or to those areas that don't feel as bright as they should.
Yes.
To stop myself. A couple things that I do is just journal, just write, just put it out on paper, starting to write out all the things that you're grateful for. Because I truly believe when you're grateful for what you have, and even if that may seem like literally just the shirt on your back and the meal that you have in the fridge, we truly attract so much more of it.
Yes.
And the other thing is to be that light. Because when you choose to be that light, who are you impacting?
Yes.
And you can turn that light up and turn that light down. But at the end of the day, this is your one chance. And so catch yourself in those moments.
Yes.
Sometimes even just a long walk will do me wonders, right? Being in nature,
Yes.
Disconnecting from my phone, reconnecting with hearing my heartbeat, feeling the drips of sweat that are dripping down my back as I'm walking. Listening to nature, just reconnect, but find those times. You are going to go back to those moments that aren't going to feel so good. Yes. But it's consciously checking yourself and then rechecking yourself and knowing you have a mechanism or a vehicle that doesn't cost money, that doesn't take a lot of time, that will get you back into that energy of where you truly are destined to be.
Yes. And I think what's so eye-opening to me every single time, right? Because we live in this world where it's like, it's the next big thing you need. It's the next diet. It's the next, biohacking, right? It's like all the next, when the things that work are exactly everything that you're talking about. It's the connection to self, the connection to nature, the breath, the gratitude. Like, these are beautiful things that are the reminders of exactly where we are in the moment and connecting back to that. And it's so powerful. And
I've tried to be way more in that energy lately, Shannon. I'm actually reading a book right now called Unlocking the Quantum Woman. And the whole part of it is to be more in that feminine energy.
Yes.
and not to feel like do and accomplish and go. And
Yeah.
a lot of that, if you're in that energy sometimes, and I'm so guilty of it, came from trauma, came from
Yes.
things that like you suppressed, and you felt the only way to get ahead was to accomplish and go. But trying to be more in that flow, be more
Yes.
intentional, trust the universe,
Yes.
believe it before it even happens.
Yes.
So much harder like done than I say it, right? I say it so beautifully, like, well, I read this book and now I know exactly what I'm going to do.
But it is, yes, it's so true. And I think, having traveled, Matt and I talk a lot about like the northeast energy, right? You know it, you're familiar with it. Like, yes, it's like there is this intensity and go, go, go. And there's so much beauty to that, right? And exactly like you're talking about, I think for me, it was when I slowed down, I could better operate in that energy because there's clarity, there's direction, there's intention, there's focus, and that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you too, is like, do you believe that there's a difference between just running at things and like taking aligned action in the choices that you're making?
Absolutely. And I really want to say that I am a work in progress with that. That is something that I have to work so hard at because it's so much easier for me to just run like the freight train, to just go, 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 get done, accomplish, check it off the box, get it done. And I have to consciously, just like we talked about before, make a decision when I feel myself in that frenzy state.
Yes.
And that do is to pause, right?
Yes.
And to decide that the power of the pause is as powerful as the push.
Yes. I love that. Yes.
The power of the pause is as powerful as the push. So some
Yes.
of us I think we get so much accolades from everyone. Look what she accomplished. She got this award. She spoke on this stage. She did this. Instead of saying, hey, listen, when do we ever accomplish, like giving people, putting it out there like, wow, she took a day to like go be with nature. She took a day to like not touch her email, right? We're not posting about that. But to me, it's just as important. And I think we need to start to celebrate that more.
100%.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. And honor a regulated nervous system. Like I remember somebody said, like, where was the mom with the regulated nervous system? Like that is a gift, right? You think about like the impact of you regulating your own nervous system, which comes through slowing down, which comes through the pause, which comes through the connection to nature, all of it. It's that regulation that allows you to be in those spaces in such a calm presence, which I think we're moving in that direction a lot in the world that we live in, but there's so much opportunity to, exactly like you're saying, celebrate it and acknowledge the impact of working from that space.
And I think going back to the way you even brought it full circle with the first story I showed is really being intentional with that choice. You have the choice. I think we're like, oh, we're so busy, we can't do that. No, that's your choice, right? Yes. We can all pack our schedule with so much busyness, but like, what's really going back to you saying with intentional alignment?
Yes.
Is what I'm going to say yes to tied to my alignment? And if it's not, if it's like, well, kinda, then it's probably not what you should be spending your time or energy on.
Yes. Yes.
And I know there's certain like things that we have to do, right? But majority of the time we have a choice. Like I made the choice, whether it's, when I get asked to bake brownies, I don't bake the brownies. I buy the brownies. Right? Like, it's not going to make me a better mom. The brownie's probably going to taste 10 times better. Right? I'm not going to lick the batter. Right? Like, it's my choice. And I know that's such a simplistic example, but like, you have the choice of
100%.
what to do. It's not that I'm going to say no to like, donating to the fundraiser, right? But at the same time, make those conscious choices for yourself. And how can you be making those choices every day?
Yes. Yes. So this really ties into where I want to go with this conversation. And we've used the word a couple times now here, but one thing that Erika talks about so beautifully and really captures in a way that I would love her to share more on is this audacity to thrive and to be resilient. And just that word, like we were talking about it a little bit before we started recording, but the word audacity to me, it's just like when I heard you say it a couple weeks ago, I was like, ooh, that word has depth to it. That word has like an energy charge to it. And I think initially when I think of the word audacity, it's like a bold action, but I usually think of it more from this like negative perspective. But I would love to hear to you, like, what does audacity even mean to you?
Love it. And I love that. I hope when you hear the word audacity, you almost think like, oh, why is she using that word?
Yes.
Like that's kind of like bold or brazen or kind of like that really, really rough sandpaper, right? At the same breath, I look at audacity as having the bold, brave actions to be able to take hold of your life. Yourself, to have extreme ownership in everything that you do, that recognizing the voice that may be negative, that just commented on your social media post that didn't like what you posted, or someone telling you that you should go and write when you really feel the reason to go left with like your career or your marriage or wherever you are, to make those bold, brave actions and have the audacity. I truly believe that when you are more audacious about your life, when you are more bold about it, when you're more brave about it, when you're more willing to be you and show up authentically and loud sometimes. And what I recognized is I was hiding that for so long. That's just who I was. And it wasn't serving me. It wasn't serving anyone around me for me to try to fit into a shoe that didn't fit.
Yes.
I mean, not like quoting Cinderella or anything, but truly like you have to decide to be audacious. And if you truly want your goals and dreams and joys, whatever that is in life, it doesn't have to be these massive goals, but you need to be brave and bold to go after it. Ask for the promotion. Ask for the person's number. Ask to make the networking connection. Go to that networking event by yourself. Go up to the girl in the gym who you've like been watching for 3 weeks and you're like, it'd be really great to be her friend, right? Take those bold actions daily, because I truly believe when you take those bold actions, you will go up against heartache. You will go up against failure. But when you do, you start building that muscle of resiliency.
Yes.
And as you start to build that muscle of resiliency, what seemed hard 3 months or years before it seems so much easier because you're constantly working on it. Yes. So many of us say, like, be resilient, go be resilient, have resiliency. You're like, wait, can I buy that on Amazon?
Exactly. Where can I pick that one up?
You see it in Walmart? Yes. Like, you build that. Like, my whole perspective of it is that when you act bold and you act brave and you go after it and you're willing to fail forward, you're automatically building that muscle of resiliency.
Yes.
And so that's kind of where I unpack it.
So,
Shannon, can I pause you? I have to plug my computer in. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's ready to, I didn't realize it wasn't, and I'm getting a green flash.
No worries.
Sorry. Hopefully you can just take that section.
Yep, we can edit all that. That's the nice thing about Riverside too. You can just chop it out.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem. Let me think here. Okay. Okay. So I love everything that you're sharing about audacity and this idea of boldness and this idea of being brave and courage and stepping into it. And I think, I feel like I'm talking to so many people right now who are hearing the message of like, take the step, like do the thing, right? But I feel like so many people are getting stuck in the outcome of it and not taking the steps to actually like be in the messy middle, right? Because I have so many people who are like, yeah, I'll do that when I know it's clear that when I leave this job, I'll make money somewhere else. Or like in this relationship, like this one's not working, but if I leave this, like, what do I have, right? So like there's this like rubbing up against of wanting something, having this clear vision, right? We know how important a vision is, right? But there's so much, I feel like, disconnect between that vision and the audacity to say, well, I have no idea how this is going to play out. And guess what? I'm doing it anyway because it feels aligned. And I have faith that if I go for something, something's going to unravel, right? It might not be exactly what I'm looking for, but like, how have you found like the ability to kind of get out of the headspace of like, oh my gosh, I have to figure all these pieces out, to just being like, I'm doing it. Like, how do you get there?
I love that question. And truly, like, it is a journey. And I truly believe that, you can't do any of this or figure any of this out without really starting with yourself. And if you need to be able to start with yourself, you can't think of the end goal right away. You need to work on you.
Yep.
And I have a method called BOLD. And I truly believe the B starts with believing in yourself. That every level of your life will require a different you.
Yes.
But you have to question yourself where you're playing right now.
Yeah.
And just like a debit card, right? Like there's energy that we put out and energy we receive back. What type of energy are you flowing? And if you're not working on you and the belief in your own self and taking out that pen and paper every day and writing your gratitude, taking the time to focus on you, taking the time to pause, how are you ever going to get to the end goal? It's like when I trained for a marathon, okay? It was back in 2010 for the Chicago Marathon. And I remember like worrying so much about what my time was going to be, right?
Yeah.
And so much about how I was going to get there. And I could envision it.
Yep.
But I recognized that I had to do a lot of the steps before I could worry about the finish line there.
Yeah.
And it was taking those bold actions to believe in myself. And then it goes on to the O, which is ongoing process. Like you have to have a process of consistency. No one who's been successful has done this without deciding and making a decision then to show up for it every day.
Yes.
And just like resiliency and going after it, it's making that decision to say, okay, listen, Rome wasn't built in a day. This is going to take consistent effort day in and day out. What does that effort need to be put towards? Because in 365 days, when you wake up from now, if you've just made yourself 1% more consistent with something, whatever that something is, it doesn't matter to me, it matters to you. You're going to be 37% better. Now imagine if you doubled that or tripled that. It's exponentially how much better you can get. How much more you can grow. And that leads me to L, which is lean on others. Who are the 5 people that surround yourself with? Who are your board of directors? Who are the people that are fueling your tank? Believing in you every day, that light up your energy and don't deplete it. Who do you need to work on to build that circle? And then the last part of it to me before you even get to the goal is how are you developing people, the D? Because believe me, when you develop other people, and I don't mean a personal development plan or something behind a desk, I just mean pouring into people. And wanting to make people better or seeing something in them that they don't see in themselves. Because often what that does is it reflects the mirror back to us. And to me, when you work on bold, when you work on believing in yourself, that ongoing process, leaning on your board of directors, your people, and developing others, I truly believe that's what brings you to that next level. But if you aren't doing those things first, to me, you can't ever get to the end goal, or you may get to the end goal, but it's not going to feel rewarding.
Yes.
Or it's not going to be really complete the way that it should.
Yes.
And I think what the other part we have to stop doing, so many of us are told to make SMART goals, and I believe in SMART goals, having numbers and this, but I think so many of us tie something to a date.
Yes.
And when we don't get to that date, we feel like a failure.
Yes.
And I've done it plenty of times.
Yes.
I remember on my vision board, I looked at it every single day. In 2022, this was after the assault had happened, I am going to be a TEDx speaker. Guess what? It didn't happen in 2022. And I felt like a failure at the end of the year when I started my vision board. I'm like, didn't finish it.
Yes.
Didn't do it.
Yes.
So stop trying to tie. I'm not saying you can't have dates or you can't have parameters, but don't make the date define your level of success.
Yes.
Because I truly believe that in April of 2023, when I delivered it, it was exactly when it was supposed to be.
Yes. Yes.
Looking back, but I remember not feeling that way at the end of 2022.
Yes.
And this has come with growth and time and practicing that bold method personally, so I can teach it to other people.
Yes. And I think what resonates so deeply with what you're saying is because I think about, so when I was in the corporate world, years ago at this point, thinking of like, when I would go in leadership development programs, and yes, they talk about SMART goals, and that so many of those goals were driven by the external environment of what I felt like I was supposed to be setting goals on, right? But it was like there was no connection to the actual goal. And what you're talking about with that, like, belief in that ongoing process, it's like it's only through that ongoing process that I've learned personally, like in that going inward every single day and exploring like what is on my heart, like for me as a goal or an intention of the day. It's only through that it creates an additional energy to the goal, right? It's like it's no longer tied to what I'm supposed to be doing. It's tied to what I actually want to do, like what is actually in my heart and like in my purpose. And I think it's so powerful, and I think that gets so overlooked a lot of the times when we're having these conversations about goals. And so I love that thought process around the belief in the ongoing process. And yes, the board of directors, like I think about that, it's such like a beautiful way in which to connect with people and the development. Like, yes, I love the idea of thinking that through and really building that out as a beautiful process that somebody can come back to. And one thing that I would love to touch on, because as you know, and a lot of the listeners know, I've been a stay-at-home mom for almost 8 years, right? And that was a big part of my identity. And for me, motherhood changed all of it, right? That was a catalyst in so many ways, where I was no longer just living for myself. I was living exactly like you're talking about for these beautiful humans that I get to be a guide for, right, on their journey. And I would love if you would be open to sharing, like, how has motherhood impacted your journey and the way that you show up in the world?
Oh, I have to pause there for a moment. I get a little like choked up when I think about the gift it is to be a parent.
Yeah.
But also I want to be real. Like, there's moments where parenthood is really, really hard.
Really hard.
And I remember being an early mom and having that moment when my son, who will be 11 on Monday, wouldn't go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And being in that moment, hearing that cry and being back in that space. And we're all going to have those moments as parents.
Yes.
But the glory that you have the gift to raise these humans who are going to impact the world. And so much of what they learn in school versus what they learn by watching you as their biggest role models. And that's my goal every day, that I become a role model for my child. And I know there's days they're not going to like me. And I know there's days they're going to rebel against me, probably every day. But at the end of the day, what type of role model do I want to be for them?
Yes.
And how do I want to show up? And parenthood changed me so much that way. And I will tell you that I have always, I went to school, I got my degree in civil engineering. I worked really hard. I wanted that corner office. I wanted to be the VP. And when I had children, I remember feeling really lost at a moment. My daughter was around 1 and my son was 4. And I remember looking in the mirror one morning and saying, where did Erika go?
Mm-hmm.
And in that very moment, I realized that I needed to go find her again.
Yes.
Because not just for me, part of it was selfish, absolutely.
Yes.
But so much was what do I want to be to them?
Yes.
And would I ever encourage them not to be everything that they wanted to be if they came to me 20 years after that and asked me the same question?
Yes.
And if the honest, authentic answer is that I wouldn't tell them to just be stuck in that space, why am I going to be stuck in that space?
Yes.
And as tears were dripping down my face that day, and probably, mascara, and if I even put it on, was in that moment, I recognized I needed to make a change and I needed to go find me again.
Yes.
Because I needed to be that me to them.
Yes.
I wanted them to have the best version of me.
Yes.
And there's days I'm not, and there's days I still struggle with it.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, I think if we find ourselves and we put that mask on first, we ultimately are doing them such a service.
Yes.
And to me, motherhood just really changed, because at that moment was really the catalyst. I remember 1 and 3 where I decided I needed to do some of these other things. It wasn't just the corporate ladder. That's when I was like, I want to write a book. That's when I wanted to start my podcast. That's when I started my international wellness business. I needed something more. And again, not just doing more. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about, but it was about finding what lit me up when I jumped out of bed every morning.
Yes.
And in all due respect, anyone that's in corporate America, I'm still in corporate America. There's nothing wrong with corporate America. But what I recognized is I needed to find something else that wasn't fulfilling me there anymore.
Yes.
And still saying, listen, I can still do both.
Exactly.
I can have the audacity to have it all.
Yes.
And all is my definition of all.
Yes.
Is different than someone else that their all is to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. Different than someone else who wants to be, a dad who stays at home. Like, it doesn't matter. You need to find out what your all is. And that's what we talk about. Having the audacity to be like, this is my life, not yours.
Yes. Yes. And thank you. Because I wanted to ask that question because, like you said, and you shared on social media the other day, like, you're choosing both. And I think sometimes we forget that that's an option, right? It's like sometimes we get in this space of like, I have to choose one or the other. And I think there's a lot of people in different places where that reminder of being able to do both and bringing yourself to both, I think, is so impactful. So,
and I think involving your kids, like I've involved my kids in so much, and that's been such a beautiful thing. And I'll never forget, the sweet words that came out of my son's mouth when he was 8, and he told my husband and myself that he really wanted to start his own business.
Yes.
And I recognized that probably wasn't something that he was learning in 3rd grade curriculum.
Exactly. He's watching.
It was something he watched. And long story short, 2 years later, now he has this thriving business. And when I say thriving for a 10-year-old, that he has a business called Hole in One, where all winter long he goes and collects all the golf balls on the golf course we live on, of all the golf balls that the golfers have lost, and he knows all the price points, and he brings them back and hires his sister to wash them, and then sorts them and then sells them in the morning as the golfers go out. And I remember that first summer, seeing him, the rejection, the days that it was hot, the days that it was raining, watching him give that $500 check to charity that year to a kid that couldn't afford a football scholarship.
It's beautiful.
Or to fund a football scholarship was such a beautiful reflection that they are watching our actions. So maybe I am not there for every school event. There's times that I'm traveling, I'm not there to tuck them in at night, but I'm allowed to teach them other things, and I am allowed to wear both hats.
Yes.
And thank God that voice in that office that morning when I was pregnant, I remember a woman saying to me, can you imagine? It's before she even knew I was having a baby. I was very newly pregnant. She goes, could you imagine leaving your kids at daycare? And I knew that was a choice that I was going to have to make. And now I couldn't imagine not, because it's the life that we've created.
Yes.
And it's not always about the quantity, it's about the quality of the time and the lessons that we're teaching them.
Yes.
So
yes. Oh, that's so cool to hear that your son's doing that. I just love the entrepreneurial spirit and just allowing them to, exactly like you're saying, like learn through living and feel the rejection, feel the fear, feel the uncomfortable moments. It's just so beautiful. So I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this and they're like, okay, I need to learn more about Erika. I need to know what she's doing. I need to better understand her. So where can people find you? How can they connect with you? What's the best way to understand more of who you are and what you're doing?
Yes. Well, I'm a pretty open book on social media, so I would love for you to follow me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Also do a lot of posting on LinkedIn. Beautiful. And I would encourage you all to go to my website. It's www.erikarothenberger.com. And there's a freebie there about how to make better, meaningful connections. Just because I believe that connections is our currency. Conversations like this, how we are that light to other people. Yes. And I would love for you to drop in there, say hello, let me know that you heard on this podcast, because Shannon's just absolutely amazing. And I love being able to have a platform like this to be able to share that message.
Amazing. So I will make sure to share all of your information in the show notes so everybody can get a hold of you. But before we kind of wrap it up, I really like asking this one question of all the guests that come on. But when you specifically find yourself going through the motions in your life, what is your go-to tool?
It's so easy to get stuck on that treadmill.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to continue to run at that 6.0 mile pace because you've always been there and it feels comfortable. And I find myself sometimes just going through the motion, stuck at 6.0. And what I have to ask myself is I have to go back to the pillars, my whys, right? What are the non-negotiables? And check myself. And if I truly want to get to where I'm going, is that pace going to serve me? And I don't mean that you necessarily need to run faster. Perhaps it's that you need to run slower. But going back and making that check for yourself. And I know I said it before, but it's truly looking at the humans that I'm raising and saying, what do I want to teach them? And I feel stuck. Would I encourage my son who might be struggling with batting to just give up? Or would I encourage him to go out and spend a little bit more time on the baseball field? When I look at my daughter and she may be struggling with reading, would I encourage her not to read or just stay at reading those 5 pages a day or doing a little bit of the extra?
Yeah.
Because life is challenging. But I think you need to check in with yourself. And by doing that work on yourself every day, believing in yourself, like we talked about the being bold, you're going to start to recognize that and check yourself. And check that energy and recognize, listen, give yourself also the grace that you are going to have those days. And if you're not having those days, you're not pushing yourself hard enough.
Yeah.
Because it's going to happen.
Yes.
And sometimes going through the motion in a certain season is okay too.
Yes.
Sometimes it's okay to say, this is all I'm going to do is just be today.
Yes.
And not feel like I need to accomplish and need to go. And I preach those words and I say those words because I am trying to make those really ingrained in every fiber of my body, and I'm not there yet. So check yourself, believe in yourself, love yourself, and look at someone else who's looking up to you and ask yourself, would I allow that person to just stay stuck or stay motionless? Because you all have a light to live, a light to give. This world can be such a dark place, but we get the choice as we go back to make that difference. Yeah.
Erika, thank you so much. Thank you for all of your insights. Thank you for your vulnerability, your honesty, and just your inspiration. I am so excited that we're back on the East Coast and we're close to you. I'm just so grateful to know you, to continue to watch you and be inspired by you. And just knowing that there's people like you in the world inspires me to keep showing up and just doing all that I can in the same way. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Let's all go be that light today.
Yes. And to all you listeners, thank you so much for being here. And remember, there's more to life than going through the motions. You've been listening to the Motion of Gratitude podcast. If you want to explore more about the power of gratitude, the joy of being present, and how you can set a new foundation in your life through our 28-day experience, head on over to themotionofgratitude.com, where you can learn all about our individual and organizational offerings, coaching and community opportunities, and our future growth to include more experience focused on holistic well-being. Make sure to follow us across all social channels at The Motion of Gratitude, and don't forget to subscribe and listen to all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.